If your quest for longevity feels overwhelming, here's some good news. It starts with one simple daily habit. MitoPure gummies from Timeline. They're the first ever longevity gummies that ignite mitophagy, your body's natural anti-aging pathway. MitoPure is a clinically validated solution backed by over 15 years of research. MitoPure gummies utilize a powerful compound that redefines what's possible for your longevity. MitoPure produces the first ever urolithin A gummies that support your cellular energy so you feel strong, clear, and vibrant. Boost your cellular energy and enhance muscle strength and endurance, all without changing your diet or exercise routine. As someone who loves to stay active, I've noticed a significant boost in my workouts since I started using it. I feel stronger and more energized, and my recovery time has improved dramatically. Better recovery starts at the cellular level. For more information and to order, just go to timeline.com/Hoffman. Use coupon code Hoffman at checkout for 20% off. That's timeline.com/Hoffman for 20% off MitoPure gummies with code Hoffman. Welcome to today's Intelligent Medicine Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ronald Hoffman, a podcast I've been very much looking forward to doing because it covers a subject that we have barely touched upon in our entire multi-decade history of intelligent medicine. It's a unique perspective on something that is essential to our health and well-being. And to frame this, I'll just tell you that weather's been a little nicer here in New York. We've had a very cold winter. We had some really cold weather last week, and it felt like winter again. But suddenly we flipped the switch, and now we're in the full throes of spring. It's been beautiful and warm out. And I walked outside my building and smiled to my doorman, and my doorman said to me, "I guess you're going to be getting some vitamin D out there." But there's more to the story than just getting vitamin D when you go outside, as can attest today's guest, Dr. John LaPuma. He's author of a fascinating book entitled Indoor Epidemic, which is a book about how we spend 93% of our lives indoors and how that may be undermining our health. So welcome to Intelligent Medicine. By the way, let's give out your credentials. And I'm going to be asking you a little bit about this because one of the things that you have pioneered is that, as well as being an MD, you are a professionally trained chef who pioneered something called culinary medicine, capital C, capital M. It's a thing. Culinary medicine actually was written about in a big article in the New York Times. Can food actually be medicine? These doctors say yes. And I say, duh. But we'll talk a little bit more about culinary medicine a little later. But I want to focus on your new book. So tell us a little bit about the origins of that book. What brought you to investigate this topic?
First of all, that's so gracious, Ron. I've followed your career, and I want to say that I love the fact that you, more than most physicians, have know that environment shapes health, and other clinicians, I think, are beginning to acknowledge that. So I want to thank you for your leadership. My own background is varied. I trained as an internist. I'm board certified in internal medicine. I did train as a professional chef. I worked in a restaurant for 4 years from noon to midnight, went to clinic the next morning. And then about 15 years ago, bought an abandoned nursery, which I've turned into a certified organic regenerative farm, which I use for teaching as well as for as a working farm for Michelin-starred restaurants locally and the food bank.
Wow.
And yeah, in a nutshell, I work the farm. It's a real thing. I live what I preach. And it's actually what helped me write this book, Indoor Epidemic. I used it as kind of a canvas for my ideas, to try ideas out about morning light and about gardening and about the sea, the sky, especially the land and the soil, and forest bathing, the social aspects of nature, and movement outdoors. And what I found was that I want to add to your outdoor argument, the argument. I want to add to your ideas about the outdoor environment that we have the same ability now to add specificity to what we might prescribe as a pharmaceutical or as a supplement. We have dose response data. We have a minimum effective dose. We don't yet have a standard of care, but I think we're going to get there. And that's what this new book, Indoor Epidemic, is trying to build, the idea that quantitatively, if you spend specific time in blue and green spaces intentionally, you can deploy that as medicine and see measurable results.
Indeed. Well, frame the problem for us, because this is kind of a paleo issue. We talk about the paleo diet. We even talk about paleo exercise. We talk about paleo sleep, the way that, we evolved to sleep, not with incandescent lights late at night, not doing shift work. We kind of follow the cycle of the day. But when it comes to our exposure to light, there has been a huge change. And I believe to some extent, we can attribute that to a guy named Thomas Edison, right?
Yes, although I think it's probably more these days at the feet of the streaming companies. 40% of us go to sleep with a lamp or a TV on.
Mm-hmm.
And as you just implied, helpfully, that disruption at night when you wake up at 2 a.m. and the TV's on or a monitor's on or a bright lamp is on, that gives a signal to your brain that you're awake. You get that same cortisol boost, or beginning of it anyway, that you get in the morning, especially if you get bright morning light outdoors, which is 25 to 50 times brighter than the light indoors. But even a little bit of that blue light wavelength at night disrupts your circadian rhythm. It's not that you're getting less sleep, even though you are. It's that the quality of that sleep is going to be reduced and not restorative. And your brain's getting the signal that it's not time to sleep. It's time to be alert. And that has strongly negative effects on cardiovascular risk, as you're probably aware. People who wake up the most between 12:30 in the morning and 6 in the morning and get bright light and get the most bright light have a 50% increased rate in heart attack, have a 30% increased rate of stroke, and comparable increases in atrial fibrillation and in heart failure. And so light dosages of the wrong kind are really cardiovascular risk factors, just like smoking, just like a bad diet, just like being sedentary, just like having high stress levels. And this has only recently been shown. Last year, a big study in JAMA of 95,000 UK Biobank subjects. So people underappreciate the quantitative impact of the wrong light, the wrong air, lack of movement, particularly if those are indoors in a sealed or confined environment, as many of us find ourselves 93% of the time.
So in the book, you contend that we have become an indoor species. So what does it actually mean? And, statistically, what is the evidence that this is a big departure from something that was a mere few centuries away?
We evolved over 200,000 years as an outdoor species. And only in the last generation or two have we basically moved indoors and never left. After COVID, it became normal to have a screen-centered life. And kids got this, especially in school with Chromebooks and other school-issued laptops, where the idea was to stay inside because it was safer. What's happened is that adults have done that as well. And we've become divorced from the biological signals that outdoors gives us, gives our brain and our body through light, air, and movement specifically, that so much so that I think it's accelerated specific medical problems, insomnia, insulin resistance, immune problems, isolation, chronic inflammation, sedentariness, attention fatigue, anxiety, depression, and as I mentioned, in some cases, cardiovascular and diabetes risk factors. So that adds up to a reduction in health span, which, as you know, is how much time you're alive that you're healthy. And the impact is quite significant. I read 2,200 studies for this book
Hmm.
from all over different literatures and put together this thesis, an idea that being inside 93% of the time not only increases the low level of chronic inflammation, but also deprives us of the circadian signals that we need. And our bodies actually evolved to expect, resulting in some of the problems that I've identified.
Well, so here's a hypothetical. I live in New York City in a high rise. And fortunately, I pay a premium to live in a building that actually has pretty good light. I have a southern exposure. So I open the windows in the morning, I get light through the windows,
Right?
and then it gets too hot. So I put down the shades because I don't want to overstress the air conditioner because otherwise it becomes a greenhouse. So I'm sitting most of the day. This is a work day for me in relative
Yeah.
darkness. If you saw the video of this, you can see that behind me, I've got the blackout shades down.
Yeah.
But I do endeavor to go out a little bit in the morning. But, this is the life of an urban professional,
Sure, sure.
mostly indoor work. I'm looking at a screen right now as we conduct a Zoom interview.
Sure.
How bad is that?
It's
Is the
not bad
light
at
that I get
all.
through the window, is that
No,
comparable to being outside, or is that
it
just a,
isn't. No, but it isn't bad. And the
okay?
reason is that you prefaced it by, well, you mentioned that what you do is go outside in the morning, you try to get outdoor light,
Hmm.
and that you open the windows. So you've done two really good things for yourself. By opening the windows, even in Manhattan, where I was last month for my indoor epidemic book launch, and which I love as a town, it's great to work in. It and even in Manhattan, you can do that good thing for yourself, open the windows, improve the air quality inside. The EPA says that outdoor air is 3 to 5 times more clean than indoor air, almost wherever you are, unless you live next to a
Because
smokestack.
possibly because of all the household pollutants, the cleaning materials, the gassing off of your new furniture and flooring and wall coverings, etc.
Exactly right. As well as VOCs, which you've just mentioned, mites, dust, molds, particulate matter, flame retardants. These also actually have a significant, not just respiratory, but cardiovascular and immune impact, which is often in many people modest or even mild. But it also can elevate CRP, C-reactive protein, and make you more responsive to other inflammatory stimuli. So that's one reason that opening the windows with a screen is really a good thing that you've done for yourself, improving the air in the room. And if you're in a conference room and you're doing that, you're also often improving the IQ of the room
Wow. Okay.
by letting out the accumulating carbon dioxide. And at over
Hmm.
1,000 parts per million, there's a 15% cognitive tax that just impacts decision making and executive function.
Interesting. So,
So
for example, in a crowded classroom in January, with the
yeah,
windows closed, with a bunch of kids in the classroom,
yeah,
they're literally using the oxygen, or they're expelling carbon dioxide, which could impair cognitive functioning.
the latter. And yes, that's actually not a woo thing. It's been identified in some
Hmm.
some organizations and companies actually have installed carbon dioxide meters to
Hmm.
track the CO2 in the room. But you don't even have to do that. You can open the window at home almost any time and
Yep.
get better air than you get inside. But I want to address the light because you
Sure.
mentioned this.
Yep.
So outdoor light is 25 to 50 times brighter than indoor light. And that matters for setting your circadian rhythm. So when you look through a window in the morning at this bright light in the morning or cloudy light in the morning, because even on a cloudy day, outdoor light is 5 to 10 times brighter than what you get inside. That outdoor light outside, and if you're in Manhattan like you are, you can go to a threshold, to a fire escape, to a balcony, a doorway. The prescription is a signal, not the scenery. So what you're trying to do is give your brain the signal that to your suprachiasmatic nucleus where your circadian rhythm is set, that it's time to wake up. So you did that in the early morning. And if you get adequate exposure, preferably within an hour of waking, when your retinal receptors are the most sensitive to outdoor light, then you get to set your circadian rhythm.
Okay.
And so it doesn't matter if you're indoors, I mean, from this perspective, indoors with blackout curtains drawn because you don't want the apartment to heat up. I actually have greenhouses, so I know exactly what that is
Yeah.
and how it feels. So that's uncomfortable. We're not talking about being uncomfortable. We're talking about using intentional time outdoors, preferably near blue or green spaces if you can get there. And if you can't early in the morning, if you're in an urban corridor, what you can do instead, although when I was in New York last month rather, there were pocket parks everywhere I went, and little 20 by 20 foot spaces, and that even that bit of greenery relaxes your eyes, relaxes your ciliary muscles, tells you that you're in contact with something other than pixels or a to-do list. But if you can't get outside in the morning to green space, like you may not be able to in a high rise, you should try to get a sky view. A sky view is all you need. You don't need to look at the horizon, which is hard to do in many cities. But you can get a sky view from any of those places I mentioned. And your eyes need distance like your lungs need air. You need not only to curb myopia, which there's an actual prescription for doing.
This is actually a point, is that it turns out that kids, and I was a bookworm and I didn't get outside enough, that getting outside and merely focusing on the horizon helps with eye development early in life. And if you don't, and the other day I got to Central Park. I had lunch near Central Park. I took a walk in Central Park and I arrived at the sheep meadow, which is this big expanse. And I said, and I realized that living in New York, I have a horizon deficiency. There are very few places where I can look in the distance and I can just see very, very far till you see the curvature of the earth.
Right. That's really true. And for children especially, we should stay on this. In Singapore, there's about a 90% prevalence of myopia. In California, it's about 40%. And as you know, in myopia, the eye physically elongates when you do a lot of near work. And this is near work. I'm looking at my phone.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you now. This is like 24 inches away on my iMac. If this is all you do, near work, then your eye elongates to accommodate that space. If you have the horizon, on the other hand, even a minute, an hour, your ciliary muscles around your eyes relax, the temporal muscles around your eyes, above your eyes relax. You give your brain restorative time so that you're not just focused on what's in front of you, but you're focused on a comforting color, blue, often, and B, distance, which takes you away from that change in focal length and helps to prevent elongation of your eye. If you do this 5 minutes an hour, it's been shown that you can stall myopia. And in Singapore, which I just mentioned, there are public health campaigns for for parents to play with their kids 2 hours a day off their device. And in our environment, that sounds crazy, and that's a lot. But that's what's needed to make myopia go away. I have the public health posters on my computer somewhere, and it's quite dramatic. But we don't have to wait for those posters. We can do this now. You can look at the horizon, help to prevent myopia, and give your brain a reset from the pixels. Because too much sugar burns out your metabolism. You're interested in culinary medicine. Too many pixels burn out your brain. And we have an epidemic of that as well. Many people think they're burned out. They're not. They're just indoors too much.
Okay, folks, at this point, let's pause and allow one of our sponsors an opportunity to share an important message with you. So here goes. Listen up.
Kids don't just bring home homework. They bring home germs. And those germs don't just stay with them, they spread to the whole household. That's why Xlear nasal spray was created by a practicing physician to give parents and grandparents peace of mind. You may not think about it, but your nose is filtering out a semi-truck full of air every single day. Xlear isn't just another spray. It creates an additional layer of protection in your nose that blocks bacteria and viruses before they can even take hold. Yes, even that virus. Supporting your body's defenses right where germs first try to enter. Xlear is a hygiene product recommended for daily use, drug-free, non-drowsy, and safe for all ages. Just a quick spray in the morning and evening helps you cleanse your nose. Don't just hope for protection, create it. Get Xlear nasal spray, your daily defense. Xlear nasal spray is available at retailers nationwide and online. Check out xlear.com for our special offers. That's xlear.com.
Thanks for listening, and thanks for supporting our sponsors. They are what make Intelligent Medicine a continuing free resource to you. And now back to today's guest, Dr. John LaPuma, author of Indoor Epidemic. What about the types of light? Because we've had a big push for energy-efficient lighting based on LEDs. But some people say that the spectrum of light, and I don't know so much about the physics and the, ophthalmologic physiology in terms of, what these different spectra of light, incandescent versus LED versus fluorescent. Do you touch upon that?
I do. And I recommend specific bulbs with particular Kelvin ratings, which is the intensity of light. I've just switched many of my own lights to circadian lights, which are now available in both LED and incandescent forms, which I think is smarter for indoors. Because when you do go to bed at night or brush your teeth in the bathroom, you really don't want the bright blue wavelengths, which is what we get from all LEDs and even fluorescents and incandescents, to wake you up because you're getting ready to go to sleep. Your body temperature is dropping, your blood pressure should be dropping, you should be powering down. So I've begun to recommend and try myself these circadian lights.
Which is sort of electronic, and they have like a timer, and they sort of give you a gradual exposure to light in the morning, and then a gradual wind down later, and maybe different qualities of light, like a stimulating light in the morning and maybe a relaxing light spectrum in the evening.
That's correct. That's more amber and red and orange. When you watch the sunset, those wavelengths of sunset, red and amber and orange, are the only wavelengths of light that don't suppress melatonin at night. And of course, you want not to suppress melatonin. When you get bright light in the morning, within an hour of waking, and you set your deep sleep cycle for that evening, and circadian rhythm, which is another great thing it does for you, you want the melatonin to be released 14 hours later. But you don't want to interrupt that with bright light before sleep. And if you have bright light before sleep, within an hour of sleep, 80% of your melatonin release is delayed or absent. And that can last up to an hour and a half. So that's why light timing is so important. I like the idea of the circadian bulbs. And I found that the right light is a tool, much like the right prescription is a tool, the right set of supplements are tools. But we've not been able to recognize it as such until now.
And particularly important for shift workers, but also for people who travel. I noticed that, one of the things that I pledge to do whenever I travel is I try to get out early. I try to get on the circadian rhythm of my locale, exercising at the appropriate time that would reset my circadian rhythm, but also getting the light exposure early in the morning, rather than, getting off the plane and conking out like I feel like doing after, a long flight, because that can set you back in terms of your circadian adjustment. Just to switch gears a little bit, you talk about the effects of light on the pineal gland and on melatonin secretion, and what it does in terms of fixing your Zeitgeber. This is a German term, which means your time giver and your internal mechanism that creates your circadian rhythm. There's actually a lot of research now on the effects of light. And so I facetiously said, I'm going out in the morning, I'm going to get some vitamin D, but there's more to it. John Denver once said, famously, "Sunlight on my shoulders makes me happy."
Yeah, he was ahead, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was ahead of the game. And so this was maybe in the 70s that he said that in a song lyric. There's a lot about sunlight besides generating vitamin D. There's actually some studies now, as you well know, that show that ultraviolet light, which comes from the sun, but also comes artificially, has a more profound effect than just generating vitamin D, above and beyond its generation of vitamin D. There's also, on the other end of the spectrum, there's a lot of research now on near infrared light, even light that is not discernible to our eyes, that may penetrate the skin, that may energize the mitochondria. So that's why we crave sun exposure. And we're told by dermatologists, cover up, avoid the sun, put on, number 50, SPF 50.
Well, I think there are some benefits. I don't want to, pretend that light isn't as powerful as it is. I think you should wear SPF 50 on your face. I think you should have sunblock in sensitive areas. I think you should use light as a tool. And you can't fix the sleep symptoms, for example, insomnia and other sleep disturbances without fixing the light timing upstream. As you know, the lymphatic system was described in 2013. The Nobel was given in 2017. And that's when we clear beta amyloid and tau during slow wave sleep, during deep sleep. But you don't get deep sleep adequately because it only occurs in the first third to half of sleep unless the light timing is correct in the morning. And that's why bright light is so important in the morning, because you not only do you want to set your circadian rhythm, but you want the deep sleep that it allows you to have so that you can build bone, so that you can repair muscle, so that you can consolidate memory, so that you can activate your lymphatic system, which is the brain cleaning system that we didn't know of when I went to medical school and when you went to medical school, but we know of now, and it's essential for clearing these toxins from our brain. So maybe this is those proteins, as you know, accumulate during Alzheimer's disease, and whether they're actually responsible for Alzheimer's disease, no one really knows. But we do know that 80% of all cardiovascular disease is preventable. 50 and 40% of depression and anxiety are preventable. A little less than 40% of all cancers are environmental and preventable. If we're leaving our gains on the table, if we don't turn the incidental minutes that we're spending outside walking to doing errands or walking to the subway or walking to the car into medicine in specific ways, using air and light and movement intentionally to create measurable changes in our biology that improve our health span.
Indeed. It's a good point at which to pause because we laid down the groundwork for a discussion in part two. And in part two, I want to talk about some practical measures, how people can overcome their the indoor epidemic, how they can overcome their light and nature deficiencies. How much does it take, or are we hopelessly lost as a civilization? But I also want to segue to your experience in culinary medicine, because you are a pioneer in that field, and that's a very, very important aspect of our overall health equation. So when we return, more with Dr. John LaPuma, author of Indoor Epidemic. I'm Dr. Ronald Hoffman, and this is the Intelligent Medicine Podcast.